take the honor.
Well, I'll just go ahead and that'll lead right into the introductions right from the start. So, starting in the bottom right side of the map, we do have our blue Terran player representing Team Mouse Control. His name is PoYo. And in the top left, our green Terran player representing Team Lowland Lions, one of the more prominent Dutch teams. His name is uThermal.
Yeah, and what would the Dutch StarCraft League actually be without some beautiful Dutch? I can't say I understand it. Couple of terms here and there, Protoss, Harstem, Hots. I think that tells the tale almost entirely, but there's no
Yep.
Protoss here, there's no Harstem here. We're having a TVT instead, and a TVT could be interesting nevertheless. And I'm pretty sure these two players, I mean, do you know anything about the styles of these guys? Could you inform me and the stream perhaps of what we might see today?
Well, the most recent times I've seen both these players, I actually casted both of their matches when they did lose in the losers bracket finals to decide, and if they won those matches, they would have qualified for the main event. But instead, they're here facing off, and they both, well, since there are no Terrans in the finals, they didn't face against Terrans then either. So I'm actually not really sure what they really go for in TVT, but I do remember uThermal was a pretty aggressive player, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we're having players deviating a bit from each other right off the bat, almost as quickly as one could possibly do that. I guess before his opponent, basically from uThermal, and oh, he mentioned my name. My name is Dan. That's pretty cool. Anyway, considering that, basically, oh, actually, PoYo surprises me a bit with a later 15 gas. Do you think the players are going to differ much in terms of what they choose to go for? Because I would actually guess a Reaper from one and no Reaper from the other.
Yeah, I'm thinking this gas for PoYo is going to lean more towards a factory at some point, unless he does add on like maybe a Reaper after that first Marine, perhaps. But first for uThermal, his gas is already climbing up quite high, and he has not queued up a Reaper or anything like that. So I think he's going for a factory as well here. We'll have to see. Yeah, definitely that second Marine coming out for him, and second Marine for both players. So I think it's gonna be factory based for both these guys.
Yeah, they're saving that 100 gas to go up to a higher tech level straight off the bat. And there we go, as you call it, the factory is placed down. Now we're just going to tune over here to the blue side of the map, basically, and see if we see something similar. And oh, actually, he's going for the reactor before everything. So perhaps actually just preferring the additional production, the relatively cheap additional production, and going to take an expansion right off the bat instead.
Yeah, interesting choice here to add on that reactor and then expand after it. That's kind of a strange little decision there, but I'm guessing he'll maybe swap. I'm trying to think what he'll do with that reactor. If he just continue to use it for Marines, doesn't seem like that's the strongest initial game plan. I think he's going to add on the factory here pretty soon once the gas finishes, and maybe swap over to that reactor to maybe get into maybe some Hellions or Widow Mines or something along those lines.
Yeah, definitely. It looked a bit more like a versus pros opening there in the beginning, actually, but now he's deterring to back old TVT style, I would say, almost say. We're having a starport being rushed out here from uThermal, and whether or not he goes for the whole, dropping some sort of play, I'd really hope it to be primarily Widow Mines or Hellions along with Marines, and that seems to be what he's sticking to right now, even hiding that Hellion in the corner in case of a scam.
Yeah, so right now it's looking like either Hellion drop or slash Hellbat drop, depending on how soon he adds on an armory, but we don't see one quite yet from uThermal, so it looks like it will just be a vanilla Hellion drop. Might throw some Marines in there as well, but right now they're all kind of hanging around on the low ground, just playing defensively. Actually, both players actually have the same kind of wall of Marines, which I find slightly amusing. But at the same time, we do see PoYo expanding a lot faster than uThermal, so if uThermal can't get a lot of damage done with this faster drop, he could be in a tough situation economically.
Yeah, those Marines being lined up at that, like that, I was actually expecting some form of musical dance moves right there, but looks like they're actually going for the full-out StarCraft play instead. We see Widow Mines actually being produced by PoYo, and of course, as almost always, in an entirely defensive purpose, I would say, which is usually what you see in this matchup. And the first player to move out is the guy who is going to elevator Marines and Hellions into the main of PoYo. But however, there are supply depots who will be able to see that quite in time.
Yep, so he will see this coming down, and the Hellions now spot out that supply depot as well. But the elevator is already pretty much complete, and there's only Marines at home to defend, and they will not do that great. Well, actually, there's the Widow Mine as well, so at least the mineral line is just a bit secure there by that Widow Mine, and a couple of Marines coming over to try and help out as well. And on the other side of the map, we actually do see some Hellions trying to bust down the wall, but that's not really going to happen there. But so let's focus on this blue base at this point in time. The Marines just doing a lot of damage to this orbital command. If this goes down, that's obviously going to be really bad for PoYo. But right now, he just can't do a whole lot to defend against this as long as UThermal stays away from that Widow Mine.
Yeah, finally the Hellions coming out from PoYo, which would be one of the few things which would actually add enough damage to be able to stop this force, but it still looks fairly futile. We're having a Viking out, actually, which is a clever choice almost, but I'm thinking maybe it would do more good than, if it was landed. Finally, we see a full-out engagement almost from PoYo, but he has to back off continuously back to the Widow Mines.
Yep, and as long as PoYo doesn't really die to this, he should still be in an okay position. I mean, he just forced actually the medevac to pick up those Marines and run away. Because he did have that earlier expansion, and actually, at the end of the day, the worker count is... I mean, UThermal is ahead by a little bit, but not nearly as bad as it could have been, considering that PoYo did have that orbital command down at the low ground. So he still has a pretty healthy... and can remake those SCVs pretty quickly. Whereas the expansion of UThermal is only just now finishing, not even an orbital yet.
Yeah, I'm a bit sad that the Widow Mines we saw being produced in a defensive purpose from PoYo actually never really got... I don't think they got a single hit off. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they were just sitting, at the range they could be planted down, basically, because they were not out in time. Had he been just accidentally or placed even remotely close to the drop location, they would have been able to completely neglect that. But now they're more in a, similar lead, or they're in a similar state of their economical progression towards the mid game, and that's unfortunate for PoYo, who went for that earlier expand.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I think the timing of UThermal's drop pretty much, it looked like it was going to be a Widow Mine drop from PoYo because he had the medevac on the way. He was very much ready to do that Widow Mine drop, but the timing caught him in such a place where the Widow Mines were only just finished, not able to get in position, like you said. So nice little kind of timing there from UThermal to take advantage of that. But we do see a 4 Hellion drop heading towards the main of UThermal. 4 Hellions will drop down, but there are a couple of Marauders here to greet them, and well, he's going to pick up and let's be like, not going to happen today. Going to go and back off. So, actually drop on the low ground. So let's see what he can do here.
Yeah, the drop on the natural low ground, and it's sort of stopping there in the middle, losing a Hellion. Meanwhile, we also have a drop sneaking almost past the Viking in PoYo's base. Let's see if those Hellions can accomplish maybe even more. Not far too many workers actually being roasted in UThermal's natural, and I feel it's going a lot better here in the main of PoYo.
Yeah, he was able to unload all those Hellions before the Viking took out that medevac. So the medevac does fall, but a fair number of workers falling already in this little attack here. One of these Hellions already has 7 kills, and yeah, these Hellions have done a lot more for UThermal so far, and the supply really reflects this, and he's still continuing to go to work here.
Wow, I've never even seen defensive Hellbat drops, but they do work, I guess. Hellbats now, of course, are sort of revealed, and Hellbats, of course, don't really lose their strength, but now you can easily prepare for them, and that's exactly what we see. We see a bunker going down in the main, so UThermal definitely fears what he has seen, and he decides to play safe, considering the fact that he is actually ahead. I think that's a great choice, and he's ahead by a very large extent, actually, more than I expected. 28 workers to a total of 46.
Yeah, and now that they're on even base count, I mean, PoYo doesn't even have that macro advantage to fall back on as far as getting those SCVs back and having that second orbital. So right now they're on similar ground in that sense, but the worker count very, very much in UThermal's advantage. And if he can just hold on to this, and like you said, playing very defensively in his main base with the bunker and the turret, as long as he holds on to this advantage, he's in a really good spot. But we'll have to see how soon one of them maybe goes for their third base or not, or if they try to hit some sort of potential timing. And the upgrade's really not turning away quite yet, so no timing's really on the horizon at this point in time.
Yeah, the two players have an awful tendency to drop each other at the exact same time, and we see the Hellbat drop sneaking just past the missile turret, now finally boosting, but oh my god, not a single Hellbat was actually evacuated from that bound-to-die dropship.
Yep, and at the same time, UThermal's drop is coming in on the bottom side of the map, and no Hellbats or Hellions here. This is all bio all the time coming in from UThermal, and there's no missile turrets or anything to stop this here. And actually, if you can pick off that armory potentially and stop that upgrade, that could be huge. Or also workers. There's a couple of options to go with here. And with the evacuation of the workers, he's going to go straight for that armory, and I don't see any way this thing survives. And that's a delayed plus 2 vehicle weapons.
Yeah, and I don't believe there's a second army in production right now. So that also means no Hellbats coming out right now, and that's
Mhm.
a bit of well, I mean, I guess you don't need far too many Hellbats when you have the amount PoYo actually has right now. Oh, is he gonna walk straight into that Widowmine? Oh, there. I think that was our first Widowmine hit of today. And Uframal decides to take all the chaos going on in the main of PoYo to his advantage, and he's actually moving straight into the natural. And there are no siege tanks right here, so this may work out very well.
And I'm going to go ahead and try and blast away that Widow Mine with the power of the scan. We'll grab it. The Vikings are coming in, and I'm not sure how I feel about the Vikings here. I mean, not a decent amount, but a little bit of army supply tied up in these Vikings that really only here to take out Medivacs, and that will actually deny the healing to the mostly Bioforce of UThermal, which is pretty nice, but well, let's see. And also the spotting for siege tanks is also quite good, but maybe only one or two Vikings. I don't know. Three seems like a bit of an overinvestment, but that's just me saying that. But yeah, bit of a stalemate here at the low ground.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with the fact that three may be too much, but we're having two more in production, so he's definitely not
Mm-hmm.
stopping right here, and that might be too much. Of course, he does get the good siege tank control, he does get the good shots off, forcing scans from his opponent instead of just having the one-time cost Vikings. But, you know,
Oh,
how
going
much?
for the
Oh,
siege break
actually,
here,
wow.
actually. And the Hellbats tanking a fair bit of damage, and those tanks actually get rolled over. So very nice break out there from PoYo. And, well, here comes the rest of Uthermal's army. Tanks sieging up for PoYo. Gonna get some good volleys off. Unsiege tanks from Uthermal. I wish his name wasn't traditional in the game, but that's okay. Tanks continuing to fire, but all the Hellbats have fallen. Not a whole lot to protect them now. The Vikings also going to take a little bit of damage from these Marines as well. And, well, a nice initial breakout from PoYo, but that counter move in by Uthermal did a fair bit of damage. But looks like both players are just kind of like throwing armies at each other at this point in time whenever they show up.
Yeah, the splash can be really, really devastating here for Uframal, so he needs to be careful. He has some great concave and an excellent choice to actually not siege his tanks when he was attacking at that point. And I need to point out that the third has been landed, and it's even oversaturated at this point here for Uframal. So he's having a great economical lead, and he's even planting down his fourth CC before the third one has landed for PoYo.
Yep, and well, that's one thing you could do when you're playing with Bio. You can afford to trade your armies. They're a like they're just cheaper units. You can afford to trade them, and if you can actually limit the tank count, limit the Hellbat count of the mech opponent, basically you can just keep pressuring your opponent, maintain map control, and expand almost at will as the Bio Terran player against mech. So he's really taking advantage of his army's mobility and cost effectiveness at this point in time, as well. Not cost effectiveness, ability to be traded at this point in time.
Yeah, big supply block going down in New Thermal right now, which is gonna halt his production a bit. Also, I'm sort of really, really sad to not see concussive shells being researched because it is so useful versus the Hellbats, which we saw before. Constantly try to sort of poke back and forth, trying to get those splash offs, but also trying not to be carried far too much.
Yeah, Hellbats are kind of like massive flame-throwing zealots in a way, and if you can keep them off of you, they really can't do damage. But we do see Urthermal trying to stim up the ramp here. Big stim, but right into these tanks. I'm not sure. He does pick off one tank, and I did say the trading is a decent idea, but let's see how much... Oh, these Marauders actually are doing a ton of work against these Hellbats. They actually absolutely maul them, and going to take out this tank as well, and he's doing a fair bit of damage, and, I mean, if you can limit the tank count, he's in a really good spot. He's killed so many tanks right now, and, well... PoYo right now pretty much only has Vikings. This third base is probably going to have to be evacuated.
Yeah, the reinforcements here with Marines are going, I think, to be able to kill this third base, but they're actually not focusing it down, so we'll never find out if that's actually the case. Some Hellbats here in production, along with some tanks from PoYo, but I don't think they will be out in time, actually.
Yeah, these Marauders are really low, and there's no Medivacs to heal them, which is one nice thing about having the Vikings for PoYo. But there's the GG. Well played by Uthermal, just continuously applying the pressure with the more cheap army of Bio, and basically taking advantage of the mobility, and also his drops are just significantly more effective this game.
Yeah, I think that's sort of when we saw the win slowly seeping into Uframal's side. I mean, they played very well, and I would say that I'm actually surprised at how far PoYo actually managed to stick into the game for the amount of behind he basically was. But Uframal just accomplished so much in the early stage of game. I mean, he had quite a large worker lead, not necessarily twice up, but nearing that at least.
Yeah, that 4 Hellion drop that did a ton of damage, while the Hellion drop of PoYo did next to nothing in the natural. That was a major turning point. And once you get that economic advantage, you can afford to trade and afford to take not the most cost efficient engagements as long as you get something out of it, like limiting the tank count and keeping them off of a third base. So I think that uThermal played that out brilliantly. So we'll have to see what adjustments these players make in game number 2.